Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And it's good to see you here today. Well, in recent weeks, we've been discussing a writing of Eihei Dogen's, the 13th century Japanese Zen teacher, founder of the Soto Zen tradition. And his last chapter of his major work, the Shobo Genzo, is entitled in translation something like Eight Qualities of a Good Person. And we talked about the first two, having few desires and knowing when you have enough. The third one is translated as appreciating quietude. Guo Jakujo, appreciating quietude. And I'll just start by reading this short section he writes about appreciating quietude. The third quality is enjoying peace of mind, avoiding noisy, bustling places that confuse the mind, and living alone in a quiet, serene dwelling is called enjoying peace of mind. The Buddha said, "Monks, if you wish to enjoy true tranquility, unaffected by the conditions around you, then clearly it is critical to live in a quiet place, apart from all the noise and clamor that surrounds you internally and externally. One of calm demeanor has always been highly respected by Indra and many other devas. For this reason, surely it is essential to put aside all personal affairs, find a quiet place to live, and ponder how to relieve the source of suffering. If you take pleasure in being in a group, you will surely encounter the disharmony and suffering of the group. It is like a gathering of birds that nest in a large tree. Eventually, the tree will wither and the limbs will come crashing down from the stress of the weight. Many people will sink into the depths of suffering due to the fetters and restrictions of society. It can be compared to an old elephant stuck in the mud and unable to extract itself from its depths. This is called living detached from both sensual desires and worldly affairs, appreciating quietude. So, of course, Dogen in these passages was addressing his disciples, his monks, those who had taken the vow of monasticism. And so, how does it apply to lay people who necessarily live somewhat differently? I mean, does this mean that it's necessary to be reclusive, to live in the woods or on a mountain someplace? And what about the value of sangha, community, and friendship that the Buddha espouses? If one is just living alone as a recluse, how does that function? And does everyone need to just live in the woods or live apart from society? What about those who live in cities? So these are some questions, perhaps naive, but questions that come up in the mind, I think, when you read a passage like this. In this book, The Roots of Goodness, Tom Wright translates Dogen's fascicle, but he also translates a commentary by Uchiyama. And Uchiyama has a special take on all of these things. And his take on this particular passage about appreciating quietude, uh, in his commentary, he talks about Jiko with a capital J. Now, Jiko is the Japanese word for self. And in much of Uchiyama's writings, he distinguishes Jiko with a small j and Jiko with a capital J. The small self being perhaps our usual understanding of self, being something separate from everything else and um, aspiring to fulfill its needs and desires, despite the impediments that uh, everything else presents. That's Jiko with a small j. Jiko with a capital J is much, much larger and includes everything. I'll read his little passage or part of it. Each one of us is born together with their own world, and our death is the death of our world. So this Jiko, capital J, I'm referring to is the whole self, inclusive of all worlds and all sentient beings. In the Lotus Sutra, we find the three worlds are all mine, and the sentient beings in them are all my children. The Buddha speaking there. In other words, your world is your world alone, and all the people you encounter in it are your children. In short, what is most critical here is that this Jiko with a capital J is inclusive of all sentient beings. If that were not the case, living in a serene, quiet place would be nothing more than an existence of waiting for death. Sitting zazen, practicing Zen as Jiko with a capital J, inclusive of all sentient beings, is what is most important in Buddhism. This is the basic principle or standard of living in a serene, quiet place. In the Genjo Koan, perhaps the best known writing of Dogen, he states that to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to become intimate with 10,000 things, 10,000 dharmas. 10,000 dharmas being a stand-in for everything, for the universe, to become intimate with all things. And I think this is the same as what Uchiyama is talking about when he uses the term Jiko with a capital J. So there's another take on this that I found very interesting and um, helpful in my understanding. And that came from an unusual source. There was an essay, an op-ed in the Guardian, which I found particularly well written for one thing. It was beautifully written and also illuminating. It's by a woman named Janice Chen, and I don't know what her background was so much, but her present situation, as she describes it, is that she has had lung cancer, stage 4, for some time now, and has been receiving various courses of chemotherapy and immunotherapy to prolong her life. And the title of her essay is The Long Middle. And by long middle, she is talking about a situation that has arisen with modern medicine, that people who used to die rather quickly with advanced cancer are sometimes living for not just weeks or months, but years, and even as long as a decade or more. And she refers to this limbo as the long middle, where you know that cure is unlikely, but you're still alive. You're still living. And because she has had contact with other people in this situation, perhaps while sitting in a room receiving chemotherapy for whatever reason, or however she meets them, she's had a contact with a number of people in her situation and has thought deeply about what this all means. I'm going to read a short section from her essay. Here, I think she's talking about a place of quietude in a temporal sense as opposed to a spatial sense. I have always been fascinated by how we wear time. Most of us live by chronos, the quantitative time of the clock, the 5-year plan, and the corporate calendar. It is a predator that treats every passing second as a theft. But the long middle demands a migration toward kairos, a qualitative time. Kairos is not measured by the accumulation of minutes, but by the rightness of a moment. It is a frequency shift, moving from a life lived for the next milestone to one lived for the morning light of the kitchen table or the depth of a single conversation. In this state, time is no longer a resource to be spent, but a medium in which to dwell. The philosopher Martin Heidegger called this being toward death. While the phrase carries a morbid chill, he argued it is the essential catalyst for an authentic life. He suggested that we usually spend our days falling, getting lost in trivial noise and the performative expectations of others. The long middle forces an end to that fall. When death is no longer a distant someday, but a persistent breathing neighbor, the ego vanishes, that the ego vanities slowly evaporate. You cease being an actor in your own life, shedding the borrowed costumes of status to inhabit your raw, unvarnished self. Living with stage 4 cancer has taught me that strength is not a metric of productivity or a narrative of recovery. It is found instead in staying present within a life that no longer fits the frantic success stories we are sold. In a culture that fetishes the loud bounce back, choosing to live gently, attentively, and on one's own terms is an act of quiet defiance. The long middle is not a waiting room, not a preamble to a finish line. It is a demanding, vibrant, and profoundly human place to live. So, what has all this to do with Zen practice? I think for one thing, a meditation practice is an excellent way to learn how to be ultimately at ease with your own mind. It takes time, and it takes, I think, persistence because one forgets how to be at ease with one's own mind. To witness a thought coming up, perhaps being attracted by some thought or elaborating on it, and noticing that and just saying, that's okay. And then when another thought comes up, another worry, that's okay. Zen practice also offers time to reflect and enjoy. It's not all arduous, it's not all hard work. But Janice Chen is encouraging us, not just those with stage 4 cancer, but all of us, to avoid being constantly immersed in the hustle and bustle of worldly affairs. Scrolling through screens, looking for what's new, becoming drowned in social media or the news. So Janice Chen gives us a temporal way of viewing quietude, appreciating the quiet moment. And there's also the spatial view, a quiet place, wherever that is, wherever you can find it. There is a short poem by E. E. Cummings that many of you may be familiar with. that I would like to end with. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rain beside the white chicken. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rain beside the white chicken. So the question I guess I'll leave you with is, how do we avoid getting stuck in the mud? And still, as lay people practicing in this tradition, be active and authentic in society. Speaking of being active and authentic in society, many people who would normally attend today are not here because they are at the No Kings March, and we wish them all safety and wellness. Carol and I will be going later. So thank you for listening today. I appreciate your all being here, and we'll go into breakout rooms for a few moments and then return.
I thought we were going to